Hello and welcome to the video. In this video it's a first look at this new camera, well, updated camera from RunCam. Now for those of you that have been watching the channel for a long time, you'll know that the RunCam Eagle in all its various versions is probably my favourite all-round FPV camera. The view is fantastic. It's also been available in both 4.3 and 16.9 versions, and recently we actually had a look at another RunCam Eagle version, and that was the RunCam Eagle 2. Now the RunCam Eagle 2 performed as Eagles do. It was a lovely camera, but I think I'm probably part of the reason why this latest version exists, because some of the things that are starting to appear on all the other cameras in the RunCam lineup, namely the fuller featured menu system and also the ability to connect the camera up to your flight battery and have the voltage of the flight battery displayed on the screen, were missing. And I commented on those couple of things in that Eagle 2 video. And now we have a new version of the RunCam Eagle. This is called the Eagle 2 Pro, and it has all of those additional features. So I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail in here about the RunCam Eagle. There's a complete playlist where I've collected all of my reviews of FPV cameras, so go and have a look in there if you're particularly interested. What I'm really going to do is talk about some of the little things you need to be aware of and some of the little tips and tricks with this camera as well. So again, it's a CMOS sensor, but it's been a CMOS sensor right since day one in the Eagle, and it performs really nicely. The big difference with this guy, over the fact that I really wanted the ability to have the on-screen display and the voltage, they've also added the ability to switch between both 16:9 and a 4:3 aspect ratio. That is huge. It's the first camera that I've got here that actually does that. And in a second I'll show you a couple of stills overlaid on top of one another to kind of show you how that works. But I'm a big fan of both flying in 16:9 and 4:3 depending on what I'm doing. And in fact, a lot of the clamshell style goggles are 16:9 by default, so it's great that you can switch between the two. So let me very quickly bring up a little summary that I've put together between the RunCam Eagle 2 Pro that we're looking at here and the RunCam Eagle 2 that we last looked at. I've highlighted the main differences. It is the fact that the screen format is switchable, there is an integrated on-screen display, and there is the integrated mic. The only other thing I can see that's changed is the sensitivity of the sensor has gone down very slightly. The RunCam Eagle 2 Pro is more in line with the sensor that we're seeing in some of the other cameras. But in my testing here, even in average light, the camera is still performing very well. But maybe if you want to use it in really poor light for flying, then maybe the RunCam Eagle 2 is still a slightly better version. Let's quickly show you how it comes in the box. Standard RunCam box, and in there is all of the pieces that we've just looked at. So you get the camera, you get the mount, you get an additional enclosure. This time the housing material is ABS rather than the metal version of the other Eagle. I personally like that. The cameras tend to be tucked away inside the frames anyway, and it's a little bit lighter. Underneath all that, then you've got the cables for connecting it to pretty much everything, and the connections on the back of the new RunCam Eagle 2 Pro are exactly the same as pretty much all the other cameras in the lineup now, where you have the main group, which is for the main connections and the voltage stuff as well, and you have the little 2-pin plug at the right hand side for that little OSD joystick that you get with these things now. Let me very quickly show you the menu system. Menu system is exactly the same as all the other RunCams too. So with the joystick plugged in, if you press and hold it to the left, you can move the left element around, which is normally the battery voltage by default. If you press and hold the joystick down, it allows you to move the pilot name around. By default that's RunCam, but you can set it to be whatever you want. And then if you hold the joystick to the right, then it allows you to select the right element on the screen and move that around as well, and that's usually a timer. To be honest, I tend to turn most of these off and use the on-screen display from a flight controller unless I'm popping this into something like a fixed wing where there isn't a flight controller installed and I just want to be able to see the battery voltage and pop that in the corner so I can keep an eye on it as I'm soaring about. If you move the joystick up, then you access the menu where you can change the name and also turn those elements on and off. We'll turn those off for the actual footage just because they tend to get in the way. And with the DVR I'm using in my Fat Shark goggles, having high contrast areas of black and white can affect the DVR's quality. And then if you press the button on the joystick in, then you're into the main menu, and here is all of the gubbins. So we can change how the camera performs, how the image looks, and we can change all the settings. By default, I'm going to fly a very quick bit of video. I'm going to pop it in one of my old beta quads. It's actually the first quad I ever built. It's running old Simon K ESCs. The tune is horrific. Apologies for all that in advance. It's something that I'm currently working on as a little project, but it's very easy to swap the camera out. So I'm going to pop the camera in the front in a minute and kind of show you what it looks like. Because one of the things that I've noticed with all of these default settings in here is that the image isn't very good, in my opinion. The image in this Eagle can be fantastic, but I would turn down some of the stuff. I personally feel that it's over sharpening again, like the original Eagle did. I personally feel that the saturation is way too high, so it's almost a hyper real version of reality, and all of those pieces can be changed. There is a mirror function in here, but unfortunately there isn't a flip function. For those of you that want to mount this thing upside down, that currently isn't an option. So let me very quickly show you the difference between the 16:9 and 4:3. So just popped into the garden and just locked off the camera, so it's looking at exactly the same thing, and then turned it into both 16:9 and 4:3 and took stills from each of those short video pieces. Now this video, just as an aside, is taken about 45 minutes after sunrise. You can see it's actually doing a pretty good job with the saturation, but again, you're probably picking up that it's a little bit over sharp and it's a little bit too saturated, but it's doing a good job in very average light conditions. So here's how it looks overlaid. So we have the 4:3 image in the middle and 16:9 at the sides. The really nice thing is it's not putting any black bars into the image to make this happen. It's truly flicking between the two fields of view. The interesting thing here is how wide that 16:9 is. It's 170 degrees field of view versus about 140 4:3. So in the flight footage that we're about to have a look at, I've flown it in both, and 4:3 is 4:3, but I did want to see how having that really wide 16:9 170 field of view would feel when you're flying. So here's a very bit of flight footage. Again, apologies for the horrific tune. It's something I'm playing with, seeing how well you can get an older quad to fly with outdated ESCs and technology. The answer is it's quite tricky, but anyway, the video here is hopefully showing, again, this is all default settings. You can see it's performing okay, it's not bad at all, but hopefully you're picking up on those couple of things that we've kind of noticed here. It is kind of over sharpening a little bit. The DVR doesn't help in this footage. The DVR also adds extra kind of artifacts into the image. There is a little bit of noise here as well, but luckily we can knock all of that back. So let me just show you what I've done here to make it a little bit more usable. I've got a collection of stuff on the desk just so I can see how sharp everything is. And hopefully you can see as I go from the maximum settings down to the minimum settings, I'm hoping that the DVR is picking this up, but you can actually see what a big difference these settings make, particularly in the detail and the sharpness. It makes a massive amount of difference. If you pump it all the way to up to 15, in my opinion, it makes the image look absolutely horrible because there's lots and lots of over sharpening, there's lots and lots of noise in the image. So I've knocked both of those back, and in my opinion, the image is a lot nicer like that. Other thing I've done is I've also dropped the saturation down a little bit. Again, saturation for me was a little bit artificial here, and I've dropped that back, and again it looks a lot more natural and it's a lot of a nicer camera to fly with. So in summary, what do I think? Well, it's a RunCam Eagle. It's exactly the same as the rest of the family. The only downside, if you call it a downside, is it looks like the sensor is slightly less light sensitive, so be aware of that. But on the upside, for an extra 4 or 5 quid over the cost of the RunCam Eagle 2, you get the ability to switch between 4.3, 16.9, ability to show your battery voltage if you want to pop this thing on something that doesn't have a flight controller with an on-screen display, and you also save yourself about 3 grams of weight too. But just be careful of those automatic settings. In my opinion, they're all pushing the settings just a little bit too high than this camera is capable of giving. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video, and particularly for watching right to the very end. We try and release a video on Tuesday and Friday, and sometimes we'll release 1 or 2 extra ones in a week as well. All of the videos on the channel are organised into easy to use playlists, so do have a look in there, because if you're interested in a subject, we organise all the videos on that subject so you can find them easily all together in one place. If you like what we're doing, then please like and subscribe and tell others about the channel so they can come and join as well. We're available in all of the usual social media places, particularly in places like Instagram, Twitter, and we also share all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse.